Nerdrotic.com.
Friends, it looks like From the World of John Wick, The Ballerina, that title just rolls off the tongue, is going to be a bomb at the box office, which is interesting because it dropped just a couple of weeks over a year since its spiritual sister flop, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, bombed at the box office. Both were unnecessary spin-offs of male-dominated franchises, and in both cases, these spin-offs were intended to expand the world of franchises that were associated with a specific actor, respectively Keanu Reeves with John Wick and Mel Gibson with Mad Max, and don't worry, we'll get to Fury Road. Both were well received by the audience and critics. Both featured lead actresses that people like. Neither film's cast and creators went out and embarrassed themselves on the red carpet. Both featured cameos from the franchise's titular character. Both look like they could potentially feature insufferable girl bosses, but didn't. And both films were okay. Now, if I was forced to choose, I would take Furiosa, mainly due to George Miller's directing, but Ballerina didn't embarrass itself. And this brings up a much bigger question and conversation. You could throw thunderbolts in this one too. Why are recent films with female leads that are generally well received underperforming at the box office? And the answer is obvious. Hollywood girl boss too close to the sun. And aside from LA burning for the second time in 6 months and rioting for the second time in 5 years, this is the topic of conversation. And while I've been talking about this topic on this channel for quite some time, I am far from the first person to bring it up this week, including Deadline. Speaking of Furiosa, she had a similar dilemma in her marketing to ballerinas. You can't just swap out an iconic action hero like Mad Max for another character, and the execution looked very similar to previous installments, which isn't provoking more to flock. In other words, to state the obvious, both films would have done better if John Wick was in the John Wick film and Mad Max was in the Mad Max film. Now, some may argue, including Deadline, that you can't blame Hollywood for trying. Since Me Too, they have certainly put a lot of effort into the girl boss, and I would absolutely agree. You have to be committed to fail this much. And this is the very definition of a word that Hollywood's been hearing a lot of lately: fatigue. Two, again, well-received films underperforming due to the sins of the feminist, male and female, more specifically the intersectional feminist, a construct created in the academic halls of America where parents pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to send their children to learn to hate them. And it's this type of activism that has seeped into Hollywood and poisoned the well of imagination. Put simply, you do more damage to any cause you think or pretend to believe in than any imaginary chud could possibly conceive. But feel free to file this in the ever-growing folder of the chuds were right by finally coming to terms with the truth. Now, it goes without saying the female-led action film goes way back. The first I remember seeing are Alien and Foxy Brown.
I remember when I was doing Hunger Games, nobody had ever put a woman in the lead of an action movie.
Death is too easy for you, bitch. I want you to suffer.
Now, Deadline does cite some relatively recent examples from what they call the pre-streaming era, but we will call the pre-Me Too era. Kill Bill Volume 1, which grossed $22.2 million in 2003. Angelina Jolie's Wanted, which grossed $50.9 million. I think you meant Salt, because James McAvoy's Wesley Gibson's the main character of that movie. And Scarlett Johansson's Lucy, $43.8 million from 2014. And of course, they forgot to mention Atomic Blonde. And hell, since we're going back 20 years, let's go back 30 and mention The Long Kiss Goodnight, because that one's a banger. But obviously, the insufferable girl boss is not exclusive to the female-led action film. While it's been particularly bad in genre, it's spread to just about everything, which is strange.
Weird.
Because prior to the current era, nobody had a single problem with a kick-ass female character, from Run Lola Run to The Fifth Element to science fiction, fantasy novels, to anime, to animation, to comic books, to TV, to film. I wonder what changed. You know, I think I just mentioned it, but I can't quite inappropriately put my finger on it.
Hashtag Me Too. Please tell me you've heard of that.
Ah yes, who could forget Me Too, a power grab that was disguised as a movement, that and a president that broke Hollywood's feeble minds. But if you really want to pinpoint when the girl boss era started, well, it was the less than lethal shot heard round the world, Ghostbusters 2016. No, it didn't generate a lot of ticket sales and did irrevocable harm to the Ghostbusters franchise, but it did innovate quite a few things, including, but not limited to, opening the floodgates on let's slap some teeth cheats on a male franchise and call it progress, and developing a truly unique marketing strategy, blaming the fans for your failures. Ghostbusters 2016 made it okay for Hollywood to call the paying customer or potential paying customer a sexist, a misogynist, a bigot, or a homophobe, and sometimes all of them at once. And that worked so well, damn near every franchise or potential franchise decided to follow suit. Which ones? Well, how much time you got? Off the top of my head, in no particular order, Disney Star Wars served up Rey, a female version of Luke Skywalker who stole the family name and inadvertently wiped out the family line, and the only memorable character trait is she's a Mary Sue girl boss. But that wasn't enough because Disney had to do it with legacy characters as well by demoting Princess Leia to General Leia in the name of female empowerment and turning her into a girl boss. Then the whole damn thing devolved into a galaxy of girl bosses, which I guess is appropriate considering this IP is run by the most incompetent girl boss of all. Not to be outdone, then there's Kurtzman-Trek, who turned the Federation into an incompetent matriarchy, and they decided to kick things off with Michael Burnham, or Space Jesus, who's so awesome she can commit mutiny, get her captain killed, and then be promoted to captain and get her own ship. And the only memorable character trait, she's a nauseating girl boss. Doctor Who took the well-established male doctor and regenerated him into the first female doctor played by Jodie Whittaker, who was just an annoying girl boss. But to be fair, she was more masculine than Ncuti Gatwa. The Rings of Power took the epitome of grace and beauty, Galadriel, and devolved her into Guyladriel, a snarling, orc-slaying girl boss. Not to be outdone, Warner Brothers decided to retain the rights to Lord of the Rings by making the War of the Rohirrim the War of the Rohirrim, by taking an unnamed female character from Tolkien's appendices of Return of the King and making her, you guessed it, a girl boss. I think it's prudent to point out that in the previously mentioned intellectual properties, not a single fan would have had a problem with the female lead. But in Hollywood's rush to redress the necessary balance, whatever the fuck that means, instead of capturing a female audience, you ended up losing a male and female audience in droves.
But wait! There's more!
Then there was the stories that certainly didn't lack any female representation, but that wasn't enough for Hollywood. There's The Witcher, starring Henry Cavill, who was constantly nagged by girl bosses so much he left. And The Wheel of Time that girl boss so hard it got canceled. And that probably had a lot to do with Amazon Studios firing their girl boss. Game of Thrones took a character everyone liked, Arya, and turned her into a Mary Sue girl boss. Westworld had a brilliant first season, then it deteriorated into an intersectional feminist fever dream filled with girl bosses. And one of the worst examples might be Terminator Dark Fate, which turned the Terminator into a girl boss, the old Terminator into a rape apologist, and Sarah Connor, the legendary female action star, into an antinatalist. Kids' movies and shows weren't safe. Toy Story 4, Bo Peep was a girl boss. Incredibles 2, Elastigirl was a girl boss. Then, of course, there's the MCU, a designation I'm willing to drop anytime, but apparently Disney Marvel isn't. And we've certainly gone over it enough on this channel, but the one thing I want to point out that Disney Marvel does particularly well recently is put a girl boss in absolutely everything. Because when they have a male protagonist, it seems like it's almost an edict that he be surrounded by girl bosses. For example, Black Panther, Ant-Man Comicmania, Hawkeye, and Shang-Chi. But again, to be fair, I think it would be prudent to point out that all the women were more masculine than Simu Liu. And despite serving up their second flop of the year where they turned Temu Black Widow into the girl boss of the retarded Avengers, it seems like they haven't learned their lesson and they aren't quite done yet with the MCU. Next up is Ironheart. And in their next film, aside from the female Silver Surfer, it looks like they're going to take the First Lady of Marvel and turn her into Mary Sue Storm, reducing a brilliant character from the comics into the next in line of the Disney Marvel girl bosses that goes on and on and on and on.
It's time to stop, okay? No more!
And it appears Hollywood will go on as well, so we'll continue to get gender-swapped characters, gender-swapped historical characters, derivative female characters in their 50s and 60s starring in action films, osteoporosis be damned, and all of them would be saddled with questionable morals, modernity, and the message. And let's not forget the girl boss female villain, who is some variation of misunderstood or being oppressed by the patriarchy, and they generally end up either defeating themselves or being forgiven. And what do these things all have in common? The staple of modern Hollywood, horrific writing. Prime example with the female protagonist would be the hero's journey, which generally subverts and, according to feminist writers, improves Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And here's a neat little diagram: the call to adventure, the threshold, beginning of transformation, revelation, abyss, death, and rebirth. rebirth, atonement, and the return. In the hero's journey, the woman starts out pretty awesome in the first place, and after she fights off the oppressive patriarchy, she's acknowledged for her greatness. And this entire girl boss era can be summed up best by this unintentional meme about Charlie's Angels. And when you get all of this, it shouldn't surprise you at all that when occasionally we get a good female-led action film, it flops. Oh, and that reminds me, because Tinseltown feels so strongly about their strong female leads, we're going to get a lot more of the bait and switch. Which brings us to our prime example, Mad Max Fury Road, which was actually a Furiosa movie, which is why they spun off a Furiosa prequel that flopped, just like Ballerina. And I think it's important to point out that both of those films required the male titular character's name on their titles. So what's the explanation for the underperformance? Is it girl boss fatigue, modernity fatigue, the message fatigue, woke Hollywood fatigue, Hollywood fatigue? The answer is yes. Ultimately, they fell victim to their predecessors who were unable to write their female characters like humans, much less women. It's a trope, it's absurd, and the female action star has become a parody of itself. And the girl boss era has been going on for almost 10 years. And why do people reject the Hollywood girl boss? Well, because it comes off as it is, an inferiority complex. It's not about uplifting women, it's about getting revenge. And no one has done more damage to the genre female lead than Hollywood, a place where trends go to die, and this one is long overdue. But it's no surprise coming from a modern entertainment industry that has taken stuff that was made for men, started making it for women when no one can tell the difference between the two anymore.
I'm gonna be a dad. Nerdrotic.com.
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.